Today's guest on the True Craft podcast is you know this guy, Andrew Coplon, founder of Secret Hopper and the Craft Beer Professionals. Andrew helps breweries nationwide create a more memorable and profitable taproom experience using data-based insights gathered from thousands of visits. He has successfully built a community of 17,000 craft beer professionals dedicated to the growth and betterment of our industry across the U.S. Andrew and I talk everything taproom strategy. Enjoy. Andrew.
Chris, it's great to see you again.
Always, bud. Always, always. How are things going in Virginia?
It is a gloomy day, but springtime is nearly here. That's time for patio season and delicious beers, so I can't complain. We'll be at CBC together in a couple weeks, so it's good to see people face to face.
Yeah, CBC is always a great time. The Vegas curveball is an interesting one. I'm getting mixed reviews from our customers, but I think a lot are attending.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see how focused everyone stays.
I know there's a lot. Have you been to Vegas? Do you visit frequent?
It's been about a decade since I've been in Vegas in a past life. I've never been for the beer reasons, so looking forward to kind of experiencing on that level.
Exactly the same with me. And that was the one thing that I only visited. I only went there for accounting conferences. And on a red letter year, there would be max like 2,500 attendees at an accounting conference. So imagine what happened the first time I showed up at CBC and there was like 10,000 people, and I was like, "What is this?"
It's a little bit overwhelming. Then you throw the Vegas component at us.
Right.
Chris, it
Shiny
sounds like
things.
we're made for it.
Right. Katie, you're gonna be a CBC, right?
I am. If you're listening to this, hit me up. For CBC.
That's great. That's great. So, Andrew, we've spoken before, and we're just gonna dive right into it, right? So hot topic, main topic, focus topic, whatever you want to call it for 2024 is retail, taproom retail, whatever you want to, however you want to describe it. But we kind of interchange it. Talk to us why it's such a critical time to have your retail tap room just lined up.
Yeah, so I'll go backwards about 7, 8 years. When I first got in this industry, we weren't really hearing the word experience too much in beer. People still had the philosophy, if you brew it, they will come, invest $250,000 in a brew house. You don't want to invest a couple $100 in the taproom experience, your staff, your guests, things like that. Things, as we know, have changed quite a bit, Chris and Katie. A lot of it's pandemic influence, but the tap room's where you make the highest profits. And people these days, they're not just coming for beer. Beer is definitely still the anchor of our industry. It's what's getting people in most situations, but they're coming for experiences. And the tap room is the epicenter of your brand, and that's where you can create those experiences, get them spending the most as possible, and giving them reasons to return.
Interesting word there. You said experience. So what exactly goes into curating an awesome taproom experience?
Oh my gosh. So I break it down on a high level. I call it the Venn diagram of a tap room. And essentially, what you have there, you have one circle, that's beer. The other circles, you have creating that memorable atmosphere. And the third circle is engaging staff. And when you get to the center of all those three circles, that's atmosphere, staff, and beer, you get that wow experience. And a wow experience in a tap room is not when you leave and say, that's the best beer I ever had. But it's like when you say, wow, that beer was awesome, the food was great, the band was great, and I can't wait to come back and see Katie again. And that's when you have that extra sense of urgency to visit. And experiences, they're different at every brewery you visit, because every brewery has a unique vibe, has a unique niche in the market. They have a unique, why, like who are they and what is their selling proposition that's going to differentiate them from other people in the market. Right now I've got breweries a half mile from me on both directions. Which one am I going to go to? I'm going to go the one that can check the most boxes for not just myself anymore, but also the 4-year-old I'm bringing with me, my friends who don't drink beer, and someone who's hungry. So
Yep.
when it comes to experience, there's so many components that come in. I mean, like I talked about that Venn diagram there, but you got to think about events. You got to think about non-beer options. You have to think about food, any kind of activities that's going to capture someone's attention. Because right now, it's not just other breweries that are competition. It's people and where they're going to go out socially. That is where we have to look at of why is someone going to go to your brewery over any other option they have within a few miles of their home.
Yeah. keeping up on your same intro about 7, 8 years ago, the drive to the brewery, you maybe had two options, right? You had two options. One possibly was in a walkable, high traffic area, and the other, which is probably first to market, was in an industrial area. But fast forward to 2024, you have like 8 stops if you wanted to on the way to the brewery. And I wonder if people are choosing convenience over quality in some cases. So I can get a B plus beer 4 blocks away, but I know I can get an A beer 20 minutes away, a 20-minute drive. So am I going to the B plus beer just for everything you described?
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on your expectations. If you and me are going out, we want that A plus beer, we might drive a little bit farther for that. But if I'm going out with people who don't really care about the beer, the B plus beer in the atmosphere might be all that we need. So it really
Yeah.
depends, what's motivating you for that particular visit.
Yeah. I completely agree with that. Um,
Have you seen trends in what the largest motivators are right now in the industry when people are choosing what kind of experience they want to have?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I'm going to cite my buddy in the industry, Michael Varda with Craft Beer Advisory Services on this one. Would be a great future guest as well, Chris, because what he does, he analyzes Google reviews and Yelp reviews, looking at what's driving people to breweries. And it really depends on, looking at different age ranges and generations, because everybody has unique goals. And, I'm going to get this wrong a little bit, I think, but he cites people in 3 different categories. You've got the beer nerds, then you've got the social drinkers, and then you have foodies. So looking at those, I believe 35% of people who are going to breweries are the typical beer nerd, like many of us listening here today. But then you have literally 65% of people who are going to breweries for other reasons. They're going for the events, they're going for the activities, they're going because someone drags them out, and they're going for food sometimes. So often you see breweries just post pictures about their beer on the internet. But at the end of the day, there's so many other reasons you can motivate people to come out. And I think food is definitely something we're seeing as a growing motivator. And not just a motivator, I would even say it's necessary as part of the brewery experience these days. Because when I go to a brewery and I want to have a pint, but I'm also, getting hungry because it's almost dinner time, I might have that first pint at the brewery, then go to the restaurant right next door, have 2 more beers, and spend $50 on dinner for my family. So I think food is becoming even more important component of the taproom experience that can become one of the largest components of that and one of the greatest motivators in years to come.
yeah. So, I mean, I think the pandemic forced the food card, right? It forced the food card, and we're not seeing standalone tap rooms open up these days or expansions without a permanent food program, which totally agree with you. It's 100% necessary. We still hear pushback that we didn't want to open a restaurant. We never intended to run a restaurant. But at the end of the day, if you're going for what you said is the success experience, then customers want food.
Yeah, and I'm not saying you have to open a restaurant because putting your own kitchen in is a ton of work.
Yep.
But you need to figure out what the right options may be. There's a brewery I visited near me recently. They have these fancy bags of pretzels. You know what? I love to eat food when I drink beer, and I'll
Mm-hmm.
even settle for a bag of, fancy expensive pretzels at a brewery if you ask me. But the problem is, I'm sitting right here close to the bar. They're 20 feet away, and the staff member's not even asking me if I want to take any food with me. Simply offering something and making it convenient and easy for the guest is so important. So if you can't have that full-on kitchen, at least have something that's going to get someone closer to having that next beer. And there's a huge
Right.
spectrum, of what you can look at. You've got food options just like bags of chips. You've got basic prepackaged things like I've seen like prepackaged charcuterie boards, or maybe bringing in a quick little oven you can pop in a quick little pizza. Then you can have your food trucks, which breweries we know have a love-hate relationship with. But if breweries are able to make the investment, I think having the control over their own food operation is the win, assuming all the factors line up.
Yeah. I don't know about your market, but I'm sensing in my market that food trucks have had a bit of a shakeout, and the ones that are remaining are able to deliver the quality, speed, consistency. Whereas for a minute there, it was in Jacksonville, Florida, it was wild. we'd go to a food truck rally with 3 starving children. By the way, worst idea ever. Don't recommend it at all. We're bouncing from truck to truck to get one item to one item, waiting 20 minutes for each. Not happening. But I would say most of the food trucks I've encountered in the last 12 to 15 months are pretty solid.
Yeah, I'm in Norfolk, Virginia. I think they have gotten better. Just talking to a lot of brewery owners, I know they have their frustrations. Food trucks packing up early, showing up late, operating without the proper licensing, getting them caused to shut down. So I think there are issues still, but compared to a few years ago, saying that some have gotten shaken out of this, I think, we have some better ones to pick from for sure.
Yeah. And I always love watching a food truck go to a brick and mortar, really test that concept out, and then open up a brick and mortar. And they're usually successful. They usually have such a great following that it's successful. I wish beers could have beer trucks. Breweries could have beer trucks. Wouldn't that be cool as a proof of
I don't know,
concept?
shouldn't it work vice versa?
Like a
Really
reverse
should.
concept. A bunch of beer food, like a beer trucks outside of a restaurant. I am lighting up right now.
How can we make this happen? Where can we make it happen without getting in trouble with the local authorities? I think that's probably the test of it, just to see if people are actually come out.
Yeah. You would
We'll save
need
that for
some sort of,
offline.
Yeah, offline for sure.
yeah.
We'll talk.
Yeah. There are these, I've seen them at weddings now, right? So if you go to a venue that doesn't have a restaurant component, you can get these mobile bars. I guess you're essentially opening up a mobile bar and with that sort of licensing. I don't know if the TTB would allow you to be a brewery without giving them, I don't know.
I think a big problem there might be all the restaurants probably are selling or at least attempting to sell their own alcohol. They might
Right.
get a little upset on this one.
100%. 100%.
It's funny.
Cool. So, what would you say is the biggest pain point for a brewery owner regarding their tap room?
Oh wow, that's a fun question there. Right now, I would say the most common question is, how do I add food to the tap room? Another one we've seen a lot is, staffing. A
Yep.
lot of it, once again, pandemic influenced. You're paying staff a little bit more, and trying to find quality staff is something people are challenged with. But one of the biggest ones is, how do I get more butts in seats? I would say if I have to sum it all up, with everybody thinking they were going to be at pre-pandemic levels of busyness, it's not happening in many situations. People are still struggling to get more butts in seats and finding ways to motivate guests to come, but also come back.
Right. And we got to go back to that Venn diagram because that really nails it all. Do you have something like that on your website we could link to? Or
Yeah, absolutely. I'll show you over following.
okay. Yeah, send the link so we can update that because everything you're describing goes back to this wow experience and getting people to come by. But you mentioned staffing. I want to talk about it, right? Staffing it's all over the board. You have tap rooms that are crushing it, people don't leave. You have tap rooms that are not crushing it, can't keep staff. And it's so painful. So talk to us about your recommendations or what you do when a tap room or an owner comes to you or a manager comes to you and says, hey, look, we're having really bad staffing issues. Where do you lead them to?
Yeah, just like we talk a lot about understanding what your guests want, it's so important to customize those experiences for every person who comes into the tap room. And I think that's a big theme from today is, you have to find ways to connect with every single person you interact with in your brewery. And it's not just guests, but it's your staff. When it comes to the people you hire specifically in the tap room, it's so important, Chris and Katie, to understand why they're working there. At one point in time, it was just cool to work in a brewery, so people were there just for the allure of it. But that's not really the case anymore. Yes, it's still cool to us at least to be around brewery people and be in the space, but people have different motivations and things that influence them and goals in life. So people, are they working in the tap room just to make money while they're in college? Are they working because they someday want to open their own brewery? Are they working because they want to advance within your company? And it's so important when you hire someone to work in your tap room to understand what they need and what they want out of working in your tap room. So, even at the interview process, ask potential hires Why are you interested in working here? How can we maximize your experience? Where do you want to be in a year with us? Then once you find the people that fit your culture and understand who you stand for and the systems you have in place, another component is motivation. As I mentioned, is no longer just cool enough to work in a brewery. There's so much more. People want money. People want to make as much as possible, just like brewery owners do, and people want to be successful. So it's important to understand what's going to motivate your team. And when I talk about motivation, the easy example as I give is, because an area all breweries need to improve, is selling more to-go beer. It's probably become the one talking point that I just can't escape the past few years, because you only see staff encourage to-go beer 19% of the time. And when staff don't encourage it, the guest makes the purchase on their own only 9% of the time. But when Katie, you magically go, Andrew, would you like to take any beer home with you? The guest says yes 49% of the time. So the
Makes
big question is, yeah, it does make sense. Just simply asking a question. Of course, I want to take a crowler of that lager home because it's going to be fantastic. But how can you motivate that staff member to do a better job with this, for example, or any other little thing in your tap room? And I break it down to a few different levels. We talk about rewards. Rewards are simply you giving me a trophy saying, Andrew, you did a great job. You give me a local gift card to a restaurant nearby. You give me $50 in cash for selling the most crowlers on a Saturday afternoon. Some people are motivated by little rewards, like I just described. Some people like recognition. That's simply when I put you on a stage, Chris, and say you're the best salesperson here at Small Batch Brewing Company, and you just recognize someone, elevate them in the company newsletter, make them feel special, and that's so important. Some other people, I break it down as being interested in opportunity. That's when they value the opportunity to go to a conference, CBC, CBP Connect, going to your state guild event, giving them the opportunity to educate themselves, which in turn will make them a more valuable employee to you, whether if they're just working behind the bar, they know more about all the above, or maybe they want to grow with your company. So the opportunity to better themselves makes them better for you as a company. But another motivator that I didn't really think about when I first wrote an article on this was progress. There's a really neat Harvard Business Review study that says progress is the greatest motivator for people. And what I mean by that is, like think back to when you were in like school or something. You had a fundraiser raising money to, save the whales or raise money for your local SPCA. Every time someone put $1 in the jar, the red line on the thermometer went higher and higher and higher. And as it got close to the goal, everybody got more excited and more motivated to kind of contribute. So we've found that people are really motivated by seeing forward progress, which makes sense. If you get closer to your goal, you're going to feel good about yourself. You're going to feel like you've actually done something. So going back to where we started and understanding staff, literally understanding what motivates them will allow brewery owners and taproom managers the ability to better craft the right experience for those working there. Because if you can do that, they're going to stick around longer. They're probably going to be happier. They're going to be better with the guests. They're going to make more money. It's going to be better with retention. And at the end of the day, those guests who interact with those staff members who are happy, it sounds so common sense, right? But they're going to have better experiences and everybody's going to see more success because of all the above.
Yeah, and what I'm hearing too from what you're saying is a lot of that's not just going to create itself. Like an understanding of like motivation and what motivates someone, that all comes top down. So leadership has to be invested in their employees. You have to be creating the culture and creating the kind of space that welcomes growth, that welcomes opportunity, that welcomes and like sets systems for rewards. And so do you have some more like practical tips on like ways that can happen or ways to empower staff or things that you would recommend to a brewery owner who might be listening?
Yeah, absolutely. Two examples there. You know, to start, it's so important that your staff are part of the process. If you're looking to plan new events, bring your staff together for a meeting. And breweries don't have enough meetings. When you put together these meetings, they need to have an agenda. Otherwise, they can go off the rails pretty quickly. But bring everybody together for a reason. And let's say we're brainstorming ideas for events to host in a couple months from now. When you select the event that your team members suggested, they're going to have some ownership over that event and they're going to be really proud of it. So bring your team along for the ride in a lot of the decision-making process. Also, share your numbers, be transparent, let them know the data of what's going on in your tap room. And we can dive as much into data as you all want later. But one other thing that I love to talk about is, we start at the top up. It's the founder, it's the owner who's created this business. They have the grand vision in most instances. But the big thing is, can your taproom staff members tell your story? And what I mean by that is, if Katie, you and I met in an elevator, you ask me what I do, can in 30 seconds or less, I tell you exactly who I am, what I stand for, and you understand fully what we believe in. That goes for those interactions with staff members to guests. If your team members can't tell your story, they can't tell the story of how the brewery came to be, what you stand for, your mission, all about your beers, then they're not doing something right. You need to be able to teach. This is for leadership. They need to teach everyone working for your company what you stand for. And in turn, all your team members need to be able to explain that to your guest, who at the end of the day, when I have a positive experience at your brewery, Katie, I, as a guest, will go to my friends. I need to enable to be able to pitch my experience to someone else and give them the sense of urgency to come to that brewery. Because when, it trickles down from the top to the staff members, to the guests, you then have your biggest advocates out on the streets bragging to other people about that experience you had. And, I joke and I call it, having the theme song. Because, when we were growing up, listening to Saturday morning TV shows, you had that theme song, whether it's about the Ninja Turtles, Ghostbusters, Sesame Street, and literally just a few seconds, you knew what you were getting into. And I actually created a theme song for Secret Hopper when I first launched the company that, it's silly, it's quirky, but if you listen to it, you know what we do. You don't have any questions. And the same should go for a brewery. In a very quick moment, you need to be able to explain what you do, because people have short attention spans. And if you can capture them in unique ways, it's going to benefit, once again, everybody involved.
Honorable mention, Inspector Gadget.
Inspector Gadget is a very great theme song there.
Dude, I make my kids watch that on YouTube, old episodes, and they're like, what are we watching? And I'm like,
have they brought back Inspector Gadget, Chris? I know they're doing like reboots of like everything, but has there been an Inspector Gadget one?
We've got to watch some grainy stuff on YouTube. No, I don't know if I've seen it. But I know what you're talking about. They're bringing back Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, My Little Ponies, all that stuff is coming back. Rebooted 2024.
That's
So I want to say something maybe kind of controversial right now, but it goes along with the theme of Taproom, and I want to say that, and I'm going to back it up. I want to say that Taproom staff may be the most critical team that you amass right now, that you motivate, that you invest in right now. And the reason I say that is because for 99% of the people listening to this podcast and running a brewery, every incremental sale in the taproom results in profit. You have to do something. You have to be doing something really jacked up to not generate profit off every incremental sale in the taproom. Now, that is not the case for wholesale. In the case of wholesale, most times the beer going out the back door could be just bleeding money, but we're not going to get into that. That's another episode. So, controversial comment, a little bit of data behind it. What do you think?
Oh yeah, I mean, Taproom's like my middle name, so I'm going to be an advocate till I die about some of your Taproom staff being your most valuable asset, because as we just talked about, they have to be able to tell your story. And we talk about them being one of your most valuable assets and getting those tabs higher and higher to get profits, keep raising. One thing we talk about a lot is engagement. Engagement and education are so important in the brewery tap room, or any tap room for that instance. And the data speaks to it. When you have a tap room experience and you feel that connection with the staff, when you leave saying, wow, Chris was the best server I've ever had, and I can't wait to come back and visit him, you see tabs higher. Tabs are 30% higher on visits that you perceive as high engagement versus ones when you interact with that staff member who doesn't want to be there, who's just going through the motions and gives you a low level of engagement. So absolutely, your taproom staff are possibly they are your most important frontline workers there, because they have the ability to increase check size and give people a reason to come back.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll die on that.
Agree. Go ahead, Katie.
Well, I'm still sitting here thinking about if I were a brewery owner. I guess what I'm curious about, Andrew, if you've come across, do you find that people you're working with or conversations you're having, are brewery owners resistant to investing the amount of time? Because we all know brewery owners have so much on their plates. There's so many things to do. They're oftentimes, no offense, brewery owners, not necessarily focused, not necessarily like investing their time exactly where they ought to be maximizing their best use. Is this something you're getting pushback on, or are brewery owners being really, are they receptive to this? Do they understand the importance of investing in their, like, as you guys just said, like frontline workers who are literally the key to unlocking profitability, it almost feels like.
Yeah, there's a couple levels to this. So first off, brewery owners and managers, you're listening, you're doing a way better job than you were just a few years ago. A few years ago, trying to pitch them and tell them on the value of, little things like pushing more to go beer and creating an experience and getting your team, excited about more than just your beer. It was fairly challenging, but brewery owners are definitely getting better. And brewery owners and managers, we know how many hats you wear. I am so easily distracted myself sometimes that it's hard to stay focused. But what I found is you have to really be intentional. The data shows that you should be investing more time and energy in your tap room. So whether it's, team trainings, whether it's team meetings, team outings, or just talking to your staff for a quick pre-shift meeting, you have to be intentional. They have to go on the calendar. So often I'll talk to brewery owners and I was like, well, we gave an award for whoever sold the most to go beer in, say, March. And I'll say, okay, what else have you done to motivate your staff since then? Oh, well, I got busy and we haven't done anything else. You have to be consistent. I recommend for brewery owners and managers each month pick one metric you want to see improvement on in your tap room. Whether it's to go sales, pick that for April. Say, hey, everybody, we're going to set these goals. They could be individual, they could be group, but really give your teams the tools to succeed on that. And that comes by, having meetings, having trainings, not just telling them and seeing what happens, but being really intentional with this, putting that hour on your calendar. It's so easy to say, but so often we just blow things off because there's fires we have to put out. But you have to put that scheduled time on there where your team knows we're going to get together on the first Monday at 11 a.m. to talk about all these goals we're going to have for the next month. So pick that metric each month. You mentioned to go sales. Another metric that I love to monitor in the tap room that I think can have a lot of results, and it ties directly to, engagement, is tip percentage. Monitor tip percentage is quite possibly my favorite metric because, if I'm consistently getting a 15% tip and Katie, you're getting a 25% tip, you're doing something to engage with staff, guest members on a higher level because they're rewarding you at the end of the day for building those relationships. But team members and everybody listening, you got to take the time to grow because if you don't put the time in and the work in your tap room, it's going to fall apart and you're going to struggle. You're not going to see people just coming in for the beer anymore.
Right, right.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but it doesn't just have to be, if that's not the owner's strength, it doesn't have to be the owner. It could be the GM, or it could be a taproom manager, or somebody who fits that kind of like culture building skill set.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think there needs to be the person who the taproom staff are directly reporting to, and that relationship needs to be understood. Responsibilities need to be written down, and people need to know their position. So, absolutely, managers and owners, I respect them so much when they admit that they don't know how to do something. For me, I love finding people smarter than me to do things that I don't want to do because I know I'm not good at them. And a few years ago, I joked that owners in the beer world were kind of scared of the C word. And what I mean by the C word is consultant. They often didn't want to reach out for help. But I think that's an important part about being an entrepreneur and running a business. We're not all good at everything. If you're not good at the finance side of things, well, Chris is here for you. If you want some help with your taproom experience, I'd be glad to help on that. You have to know when to reach out for help because when you can do that, it's going to take the load off of your shoulders and ultimately you're putting the power in the hand of someone who's an expert in that space, and they're going to be able to take what you've created and maximize it even more.
Yeah. When a brewery is transitioning to a full kitchen or a full food program, and they know they need to make that hire, do you recommend that they go out and find the most capable, accomplished GM that they can afford, that has the experience, or do you like to look within the business first to see who's got the culture fit, who's been with us long enough, and may not be that strong at the whole kitchen management process, but could certainly learn it? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, Chris, because running the kitchen, as we talked about earlier, is running a separate business. If you have a skilled GM who's overseen a kitchen before and knows how to hire someone to be a kitchen manager, I think that strategy can work. If you're completely separating the tap room from the back of house kitchen area, then you may just want to invest in someone that's their expertise. But make sure whoever they're reporting to, whether it's, a tap room manager, a kitchen manager, both reporting to the owner, I think everybody needs to be on the same page with what their goals are. But the important thing is having someone who understands the kitchen operation. So yeah,
Yeah.
it may be best to look outside your current staff if no one has that skill set. You don't just want to put together some recipes you made at your house and hope it succeeds. You need someone who's really knows how to mass produce and delegate on that side of the operation.
Right. What I encounter a lot is the trusted admin person, right? The trusted admin person, they've been there since day one. They know the business inside and out. They sometimes assist on some of the work that we do, the accounting and finance function, but at a low level. And the move to a full kitchen is an opportunity to promote that person either to GM, and because the GM really needs to feel the owner's drumbeat. They've got to understand what gets them excited, what upsets them, so on and so forth. So this promotion opportunity into now we have this events space with food capabilities, right? Or now we have this person who knows what profile the owner is looking for all these management positions. So that's what we're encountering. It's that trusted day one team member that doesn't brew beer, doesn't work in the tap room that much, but really is holding the business together behind the scenes, promoted up.
Yeah, I think that's an absolute win because you said the word business there quite a bit. They get it. They know how
Yeah.
to run a successful business from all angles and they're organized. Those are some of the key components for as you grow and scale your business to have someone who has those assets.
Yeah. All right. Let's switch topics to the lovely return customers, right? How do you get people to keep coming back? What has been your experience here? Well, take us back to 2015 and what it was like then versus what it's like today with repeat customers.
Oh boy. Well, I don't have the data on showing people came back a little sooner a few years ago because I don't know if anyone does on that one. And back then it was just all about the beer. But not to really sound like a broken record, repeat customers are coming back because of that overall experience. They're coming when it checks all the boxes. They're coming, but it's because it's going to please everyone in that party. I mean, they're looking for convenience. They're looking for a product that's consistent. They're looking for, events. They're looking for food. They're looking for engaging staff. Those are all truly the factors that are going to bring people back. And we do have data that says, if someone comes to a taproom brewery for the first time and they just don't feel that connection and they don't have a positive experience, they're only 45% likely to recommend to return to that business. But if they go and it checks all those boxes we just talked about and it has that wow experience, they're 99% likely to, pitch it to their friends. So it really comes down to creating those experiences. And those are truly the drivers to getting people to come back. I wish there was another answer there, Chris, but in the current state of craft beer, you have to please so many different kinds of people who have so many different needs. And it really comes down to understanding those needs. It's
Yeah.
creating customized experiences. And that's something I'm finding myself saying quite a bit more these days. Because when you have the beer nerd come in, well, you know how to connect with them. They're probably looking for the next coolest beer, their standby that they always drink. But when you have the 21-year-old Gen Z person who's never been to a tap room before, they're going to require such a different experience than that, that boomer who's coming in to give them that feel that the visit was a success. And, that person who comes to a tap room for the first time, it's so interesting because looking at the younger generations, they often want less engagement. They may be more likely to talk about, QR codes and just, other mediums like that to kind of experience the brewery. And that might be satisfying for them. But on the other hand, they might need a little bit more education because they might not be as skilled in your menu. So you have to make those moments of interaction more valuable in the short times that you can. So you might have that little sprint of communicating with someone on about their first brewery visit. You need to let them know what you have offered, tell you your story really quickly, and find the right beverage for them. And if you can find that right beverage and give them other reasons to return, they're going to have a positive first experience.
Okay. I have a question for each of you. And I'm going to go around. Katie, QR code or paper menu?
Ooh. Oh, guys.
I love that you opened up this conversation.
So one of my favorite places in my hometown, QR code all the way. But sometimes the QR code doesn't lead to something pleasing to my eye. So like I open my phone up and it's like, I don't want a like paragraph about your beer under, I need just to know what you have to offer. So I think it depends on what I'm getting out of one or the other. I can go back and forth depending on the like brewery or the experience. I don't know if that's helpful, but that's my answer.
That was lawyered up there. That was a lawyered answer. Andrew, QR code or paper menu?
So I'm team paper menu. I've been team paper menu for a really long time. I remember when I first put stuff out there about the data behind having a physical menu, people thought it was really controversial at one point in time. Like, oh, this guy's preaching paper menus, but the data says that having a paper menu, it generates higher tabs. Tabs are 25% higher when you have that as one of your options. But I do appreciate a QR code sometimes when the ordering experience doesn't facilitate as much engagement. So to kind of give a little bit of a lawyer answer there as well, there's a scenario where each are valuable. And, if you've only got one ordering line, it's a busy Saturday and there's 200 seats in your tap room, having that QR code as an option, as a convenience can be appreciated.
I will say
Okay.
the thing I don't appreciate about paper menus is when when you're cycling through beers all the time and your paper menu's out of date.
Yeah.
So here's what you
I
can
can't
do.
see
You have
that.
to get a little hybrid of this approach. You can have that paper menu that has, let's say you have some flagships, have your 5 flagships at the top of it. Then you pop in that little QR code at the bottom and say, scan for our seasonal offerings. That way
Oh,
you're thinking outside the box, not printing as
That's
much
it.
paper. It's a win for everyone. And you teach people to
That's my
use the
vote.
QR code, which people are still learning how to do. And some
That's,
people will never learn how to use a QR code. So we got to meet them where they are.
or we
I
should
would
re-educate them. You hold out your phone, you open your camera. It's not hard.
I was at a brewery this past weekend in Carolina, and they had a big sign on one of their doors saying exactly what you just said, Katie. It was a 3-step process to use a QR code. No joke. But one piece of advice I gave them is you need more signage like that. Because no matter how much signage you have in a tap room, people don't read it. So you have to put it in their face a billion times with hopes that they someday will learn how to do it.
If anybody's wondering, I'm paper menu.
No, I wasn't. No, I was kidding.
Unless I'm at Jimmy's Burger Shack and they have 6 options, and that's the whole menu is 6 options, 3 burgers, 3 types of fries, and that's it. Then I'm QR code all day long. But I would love to see the data, and I'm gonna predict the data on people that use QR codes. I bet the first 3 beers are the highest selling beers.
I don't have that data, but I wouldn't argue what you're saying because it just makes it so easy.
Yeah. It's the first 3, and you have scroll fatigue, or you're just like, oh, we got to do this again. And then but if I'm at a restaurant and they're like, scan the QR code at the end of the table, I'm always like, paper menu. And sometimes I blame it on my children. I'm like, kids, paper menu, please. Or sometimes I'm just like, no, I want a paper menu. But I do like to touch. I do like to feel. I do like to look at I think menu layout is critical.
Hmm.
When you're doing it in paper form, I think it can also drive sales. I think it can get people's taste buds going. So
You got to keep it simple. And, I love having a physical menu. Then I'm going to share some data on other menu stuff that I think you'll be interested with, Chris. Because having that physical menu, if you and I are out having drinks, we're going to study that menu. We're going to learn about the brewery. We're going to talk about it. If it's sitting in front of me, I'm going to say, like, oh, you know what? I think I'm going to have that next. I'm already going to be thinking about my
yeah,
next drink.
yeah,
And I think that's a negative thing with the QR code. I'm not going to have my phone out the entire time. Hopefully I won't, at least. And, so I'm not going to constantly be seeing, oh, I need to have that next lager when I finish this one. But the paper menu, you can't really get rid of. So it's kind of always going to be there. And
right.
I know you're always interested in how the taproom experience is changing. A few years ago, let's say pre-pandemic, you would just have that paper menu. You would just have that wall menu. You would just have that TV menu. You would have literally one option. And as we all know, you go to a taproom now and it's all the above. You might have like 5 different menu types, literally, when you go to a taproom these days. So we did actually dive into, spending habits based on, types of menus that you have. And what we did, we broke it down a few different categories. We talked about TV menus, we talked about wall menus, QR code/phone menus, or those physical paper menus. And at the end of the day, when you're, don't hate me when I say this, Chris, your menu of menus, so to speak, includes a QR code menu as one of the options along with other things, your tab and your spend is actually going to be the highest. So looking at those tabs, when your visit includes a QR code menu, the average check's going to be $57 for that party. Versus, say, when you only have a wall menu, that's actually the lowest at $51. So having more options, the merrier, but having the QR codes as part of the mix is the moral of the story.
Yeah, I think it's totally complimentary, but it's the hey, scan the QR code that gets me a little miffed.
Do you have a smartphone, Chris?
Yes, I have a smartphone. Ding.
I mean, it's crazy though, because my kid knows how to use a QR code. Like, why does a 4.5-year-old know the terminology QR code?
I know.
Oh, because we go to breweries and he knows how to use it. It's crazy.
I would argue that it's going to be the standard in the future.
Yeah.
Whether it should or not, I think that it'll move that way, because it's like, I don't want to say everybody has a phone, but people going to these places, I'd say most of them have that ability, but I don't know. It's interesting.
People still like engagement, but QR code is definitely a nice option to have.
Yeah. Okay, one quick marketing question for you, and this is another versus. So we're seeing a lot of SMS versus these apps that do push notifications. Any thoughts on those?
I like the SMS better, actually, because I'm not having to download the app. Although I think there's value in each. Like, so with regards to the app, if I can download a brewery's app, there's one brewery near me that just got a new loyalty program, has their brand new app. I get $2 off my first beer just by downloading it. I'm going to download it. It makes it nice and easy. I find for me as a consumer, I'm more likely to not see the notifications from an app, just because we all get a billion dings on our phone throughout the day. It's easy to miss. But if I get a text message coming through, I'm going to be more likely to see it. And as long as I've opted in for it, I've got no problem with it.
Yep. I agree. I'm an SMS fan over the apps and the push notifications.
I'm also a big email marketing fan too, though. I love getting a good email that's actually informative, not just saying new beer release Friday, but something that gives me a sense of urgency to visit that brewery, or worst case, a reminder. I hadn't thought about that brewery in a while. They've got this cool event on Friday. They've got this food truck that I've been wanting to try. Something that gives me information and makes me feel connected.
Yep. We mention email marketing all the time. It's so critical because number one, it's nearly free. And number two, we're spending so much time on our computers these days that back to your Venn diagram, Dan, we're going to put that's going to be the theme of this, Andrew's Venn diagram. If you master the Venn diagram and they see that come into your inbox, they're going to open it. Yep. Awesome, Andrew. Hey, man, I really, really appreciate you joining us today. What a great conversation. So timely, so relevant. We're going to be talking about this all year.
Yeah, we can't have enough taproom talks, I believe.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you so much again, and have a great day. Talk to you soon.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the True Craft Podcast. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast player. And if you are just dying to know what Chris and I look like, you can head over to YouTube for a video recording of the show. Links to cool information about our guests and other fun facts can be found in the show notes. This podcast is sponsored by Small Batch Standard, the premier financial agency built to serve the craft brewing industry. We help craft breweries grow profits through outsourced accounting, tax compliance, and growth consulting. Visit sbstandard.com today to learn more and request a discovery call.